All right. Okay. So yeah, let's see where to start. I had been thinking about this all day long, so now I've forgotten all of it. So let's see. I'll give you the long story.
Do it. Give us the
Um,
long story.
yeah. So let's see. I was working at a bakery. I was as a baker, and a friend of mine who worked at a game shop at a electronics boutique back then got a job at 99 Studios as a tester, and he was telling me about this new awesome game that sounded really cool. And they were looking for testers, and the idea of working for a game studio was just it was like a fantasy. It was like being an astronaut or something. Uh, so I was really into it. I played tons of video games growing up, and I got a job there as a tester at 99 Studios during the very, very end of alpha of EverQuest. I think the second day at work was when we went into beta for EverQuest. And it was, for that first month, it was the best job I've ever had. I just came in and played video games, like literally played video games, this video game, for a shift. And, you know, they had snacks there, like you could just have hot chocolate whenever you wanted. It blew my mind as a early 20 something kid. It was super fun. Um, then I moved to as a tester on Cyber Strike 2. Clint Worley was the producer on that. It was this mech kind of game. It was super fun, especially multiplayer. And we worked on that for a little while. When I had my first experience with like a 30-hour shift working on a master gold disc for Cyber Strike. Uh, and then we went back to EverQuest when that shipped. And around that time, they needed customer service folks. So I went from being a tester to working in customer service, and I was um, one of the first GMs when we first launched in 1999. So yeah, I was one of the first GMs. My GM name was Iradial. I was GM on Bristlebane, GM on a few servers. I was a GM on Talonzek for a little while. That was fun. Uh, and so they were starting to work on Kunark right away, and I know that the design team was asking, the customer service team, like, hey, we need content. So, um, if you're interested, just write some stuff and we'll help you get it into game. And that was the birth of the apprentice program. Uh, Bill Coyle and Tom Wells and Kelsey McNair they knew Brad, and did that pilgrimage from Florida all the way over to San
Oh,
Diego.
that's right. It was Florida.
Yeah, they Tom told me that they drove across country in 3 days to to work on EverQuest uh, in one car, all of them taking turns driving.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and uh, they did the hard work to come up with those ideas, and then got into that first program. And for me, I was interested. Like, yeah, I want to write content for the game too. Um, but around that time, Homeworld that space RTS, and it was super fun. And I just kind of was more into playing than I was into doing that work. So they grabbed that first opportunity. Um, so fast forward to I was GM for a long time, and at one point, Bill came to me after Kunark had launched and was like, "Hey, we're gonna we're doing these things called EverQuests, and we just need to write these big epic quests that should take these world spanning quests that are for level players. And so do you want to write some stuff for those? And I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And I had done some reading in like Native American kind of shamanism a little bit, so I started writing the Shaman epic quest. When I say started writing, I basically just kind of putzed around and had some basic ideas in my head, but I didn't really do any real work on it. And there's one moment I remember that I wanted to talk about. It was Baldur's Gate. The first Baldur's Gate had just been released, so I was playing that, and it was after work. I was sitting at my desk at work playing Baldur's Gate, and while they were waiting for me, to write the Shaman epic quest, which I was just kind of sitting on. And Tom Terrazas, at that point, had become kind of a lead. You remember Tom Terrazas, right?
Yeah, I remember Tom.
Yeah. So he comes up behind me, and he had been there since the beginning, but I really he was a nice guy, but I didn't really know him very well. We didn't really share, we didn't really click like I did with like Bill and Tom and those guys. But he came up behind me and saw me playing Baldur's Gate, and he was like, "Hey, Jeremy, what are you doing? You have this unique opportunity to get into, to grow and get into the as a designer, and you're sitting here playing games." And he just walked away, and I thought about it for a minute. I was like, God, he's right. I'm just sitting here playing this game, really doing something special. I quit. That moment, I quit playing Baldur's Gate and brought up my Word document to start writing the Shaman epic quest, and I wrote the whole thing. I was really inspired in that moment, and that kind of got me into the apprenticeship program. People really liked it. I remember talking to Bill Trout, what shamans were in the game and what their lore was and stuff like that, and that was really cool. I was really into that. I also then wrote the monk epic quest. I was really interested in Taoism, and the start of the monk epic quest is a reference to the Tao Te Ching, which I at the time thought was really interesting. So that kind of got me in the door as an apprentice. You've discussed that before, is that you would work 10 hours of overtime just doing designer stuff. And then the rest of your time was as a GM.
Yeah. So
yeah. Sorry, I'm not looking at the Twitch stream, so I don't know if
no, it's fine. It's fine. What I was about to tell chat was we're recording the questions as they come up. I've got them over here. Don't worry, they're not going to get lost. Everil, thank you for the follow. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Jeremy, I'm also writing down questions for you as you talk, because there's some stuff I'm like, oh, I want to get back to that. So
yeah. But so I was apprentice for a long time. A lot of up to that point, apprentices would apprentice for 6 months or something before a rec opened up for a new designer on EQ. So I was an apprentice for like a year, and I was the lead apprentice designer for a little while. When Paul Carrico and those guys were new apprentice designers. And then I was sitting there one day, as an apprentice, I done a lot of post-Kunark stuff. I went back to the kind of the old classic world and fixed a lot of broken stuff. I tweaked with those epic quests a little bit, those two, and my work in Velious. So a lot of the work I did ended up in Velious. just kind of random stuff. I was an apprentice still, so I was just kind of entering in some random quests here and there. Some Kunarg stuff I added. There was a warrior XR like armor quest that I did. That was a lot of fun. He mentioned the Naginata quest that I spent a lot of time in. That was kind of like the higher level, not epic quest.
Yeah, dude.
I did, yeah.
Because
That was really cool too. I did, yeah, that was cool.
that was like the first thing I remember. So like my first exposure to the EverQuest design tool database was you late at night. Like the lights were out even, I think, because I think it was just like Ruth and Chris, and they turned the lights out and listened to music. They were the night GMs, and
Right.
you were still working, and you were nice enough to like let me actually start to look over your shoulder. And I think you were working on that at the time. I remember that quest.
Yeah, yeah.
There are a couple questions I rolled in, and I feel like you've got quite a history. So we if we just go, you know, like we're gonna have to come all the way back. I'd almost rather pause and hit some of the questions related to the stuff that you just mentioned, because I have a few, and then some have already rolled in. There's sort of a general question that came in from Brandon Nemo. Was Brad accessible or off limits in the early days?
That's a great question, and I do have something to say about that. It's something else I thought about, especially when he passed away recently. I was thinking about him, and I had no interaction with him. I don't think I had one direct interaction with Brad. I saw him in design meetings. I'd heard about him in design meetings and getting really angry and things and all that stuff, but never had any direct interaction with him. I know he did with the other people, but I don't think he was like in touch with the apprentices a whole lot. Maybe I don't know. And I think that there was a reason for that. I don't think he liked me very much for real reasons. As a GM, I made a couple of mistakes. Stories, and I'll tell them now because they're funny.
One of them came up, I think, in an earlier guest.
Oh, really? So back in beta, we were testing. We had the chat servers. So the servers were down. You could go into the chat server and talk with people. You could do, IT. It was like a AOL chat room, and we were testing that out. And so they wanted to really test the load, so they wanted everybody to spam everything, all the beta testers spam a whole lot, just see it crash the chat server. And when a GM would speak in chat, it would, you'd have like it was highlighted in white or something. And I kind of got carried away in that spam. So I started spamming in chat, and I decided to kill your parents, worship Satan. And in the chat room where it was spamming, it was just got lost in the feed or whatever. In the other rooms that had fewer people that weren't spamming, you would just see this giant block of GM spam that said "kill your parents, worship Satan." And I didn't know this, but apparently Brad is a fairly religious guy, and he had a friend who in the servers, and his friend called him up and was like, some GM just spammed something about worshiping Satan. And Jeff Butler called me into this and had to give me the business. It was really stupid. I think so. From then on, it just gave that was what people remembered me by. I think Bill told me later on, like, yeah, we brought you up as to become a GM sometimes, but everyone up, wasn't Jeremy the guy that did the kill your parents, worship Satan thing? So I always got shut down for that.
It was tough back then because I had facial piercings in my sleeve, and so true story. Like after I'd been apprenticing for a bit, one of the people, and I won't say who, but I'll just say one of the people took me aside and was like, "Hey man, we really like your work, but the tattoos are one thing, but the lip rings are a bit much. I don't know if you can get on the team with the facial piercings." And so it was like one of those moments where I was like, "Oh wow, I was not expecting this to be my barrier to entry." And yeah, eventually they went, and people got to know me a little bit better. But it was it was definitely different. It was like culturally, it was still such a small group of people, and you kind of had to fit in.
About that, I'm surprised to hear that because I felt like it was a fairly, it's a video game studio. I felt like it was fairly liberal. I'm surprised that that was an issue.
Yeah,
I
it
don't even
was.
remember you having facial piercings.
Yeah, just I
Now it's
had
like no big deal. You have piercings
nah.
all over the place. No one cares.
Well, they didn't care about any of my other piercings. They just didn't see them. Just kidding, guys. So before we go too far, dude. So the chat, if you're not seeing it, is response was, "Goddamn, I'm so happy the Hail Satan story came full circle. This is a magical day. Um, glorious, absolutely heroic. Pretty tough first impression to work away from. A lot of applause and yes in chat for that story. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
it's
that really painted me negatively. And then after I became an apprentice, I put this design idea that Brad did not like at all. And maybe I don't remember if you were there at that time, but there was a one of the things I really didn't like about EverQuest is there was some imbalance issues, and people, they gravitated towards certain zones and totally left other zones unused because they were whatever. They were just there was something wrong with them. And so my thought back then was like, part of the problem was there. It's really, really risky to go to a zone by yourself or with a group and lose your corpse somewhere. Uh, all of your stuff. It was really a harsh uh, penalty. So the risk was just so around corpse retrieval. So I had this idea that you could get in a place for long enough in some zone in a dungeon that we could flag that it be teleported to the zone entrance. So there wouldn't be such a terrible risk with losing your corpse in a zone that didn't have a high population, uh, like Carnivor's Castle or something. Some of the other zones. I sent this email out to everybody, and a few people were like, "Yeah, it's cool, and it's really easy. The lore would make sense, like the inhabitants of the dungeon corpse down, so they drag it to the zone line to get rid of it." So people were into it and were ready to make that a thing, and then Brad responded to the email, CC'd it, and was like, "This is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. This totally breaks everything, the kind of interdependency that we want in the game. It creates a penalty, like where now if you die, you have to some amount of time for your corpse to show up at the zone line." So it made sense, like that was a band-aid issue to fix the bigger issue that some zones just weren't really, just had to get reworked. They weren't viable dungeons. The population wasn't viable. So after that, he, painted that I didn't make good design decisions. And then I'll tell one last story and then move off from that. And then also, we used to play this. We had a group, Magic the Gathering kind of session that a lot of us played, and we had these big free-for-all group games. And Brad was part of it. He always had like the really high-priced, like badass decks with like dragons and angels and stuff. And there was one game I was playing this. I was a pretty new player, and I had this big dumb green deck. And I decided I was going to try and kill Brad. He was sitting next to me. And because he was always a big threat, and I could kill him, I had a lure that I could kill him with. So I attacked him. I killed him in one hit with all my big fat green creatures. And he was pissed off. He was so mad at me. He scooped up his cards and said, like, I can't believe I got killed by a lure. And he scooped up his cards and went home. Didn't say another word. Everybody was quiet. Like, it was angry. And the very next turn, Bill Fisher actually killed me to get vengeance on me for killing his friend. He killed me with a nightmare the very next turn. It was great. So I didn't have any sort of relationship with Brad, but I do remember hearing him in a meeting talking about how people were so vehement about the decisions they were making, and that really recognized him for me. There was a moment where he was just going off about how people were saying, like, people are going to quit your game, and then you'll pay for the wrongdoing you've done against the player. You could tell he was really hurt by that. He was trying really hard to make a game that he thought people would love and enjoy, and was making the right decisions for the game. And people, in the forums were just all that kind of vitriol that you would see in the forums, and he read that every day, and it really hurt him. So that made me respect him,
Yeah.
as the vision and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But those are my Brad stories.
Those are your, no, man, those are your very, very human stories that allow us to get, I think, it's nice to get a lot of different views. I'm kind of hoping that over time we can get as many different vectors sort of poking back into history as possible, so that we can get something that feels like a little bit more of a complete picture, if that makes sense. So no, it's good to hear. And yeah, I mean, we'll get back to the other questions. There's definitely some Shaman Quest questions, stuff like that, but the memories you just shared are pretty irreplaceable. Is that the right one? Irreplaceable. Yeah, I think I used English right. I've been in Europe for 5 years. And DC Ray Boss says, thank you for being so open about all your memories, good and bad. Gibbs says, that was deep. Thank you for that. Turnip Gin, I love Jeremy already. There we go. Yeah.
Just reading the comments now. I made
right on.
Brad rage quit at Magic. That's what happened.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And if that happened, it happened, dude. So before we go much further, because I've got the feeling like as we dig, what I'm noticing with a lot of discussions is we can dig and we'll wind up in an area for a while. So what I want to make sure is we don't miss the stuff from earlier, because there's actually a decent amount there. A couple questions I have, as well as what chat had. So one question from Turnip Jim was, what was the basis for making the Shaman Quest so faction heavy? It's rather unique to the others in that sense.
I remember talking to Lawrence Poe about this, because there's one of the issues that EverQuest has is that you can't do a quest and then it be done. Like once you do a quest, you can do it over and over and over again. Which is why so many of the early EverQuest quests are like, turn in 4 bone chips. You can just do it over and over. There was no mechanic in shut off the quest for you. And so with the Shaman Epic, I really wanted there to be hard kind of progression through it. Because it's funny when you read, the EverQuest wiki pages now, or Alakazam back in the day, there were all these workarounds. Oh, you can just cheat your faction by doing this, and you can skip whole swaths by, fudging this faction thing. So Lawrence had to create a whole new faction, I think, called the True Spirit faction or something. It was a mechanic where I tried to make that hard progression. So when you completed a certain step of the quest, it would give you a very specific faction that you couldn't get any other way. And the next step of the quest required that certain level of faction to complete. And those steps in the faction so enormous that there was no way to fudge it, essentially. So that's kind of why it was. You should have been able to just complete it straight to, from front to back without having to do any like faction grinding or anything. So I don't know if that's what they're talking about, but
you did get a thank you for answering that in chat, so I think it addresses the question.
Yeah, there was one step where you could essentially, do the first step of the quest like 100 billion times to be able to skip the next one, but it was just easier to just do the quest how you were supposed to do it.
Right on. Yeah, Keeb said, might be happy to know they have made the Shaman Epic non-multi-questable. Every Shaman must do the full quest to get their own tier. So Goodman says, because I'm reading this one straight out because it had to do with a sound glitch earlier. You were cutting out a little bit. Did you do the Monk Epic?
Yeah, Epic as well. That I did a lot of actually implementing it as well. The Shaman I just kind of wrote, and then somebody else, I don't know who, pretty much implemented it. But I worked on the Monk Epic. The inspiration behind the Monk Epic was more sort of like a Bruce's Game of Death movie, where you just sort of find you're like going up the stairs to the different levels of a master you had to be honest, I feel a little more inspired by the epic than the Monk Epic. So I liked the Monk Epic, and I'm sorry, the Shaman Epic better than the Monk Epic, but it's a lot of it. My GM character was a monk. I liked the idea of monks.
Yeah, your GM character was a monk that walked around with a fishing pole, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
that was your weapon. That was your GM badass weapon, and it like perfectly summed up your attitude. And I was the GM on the server after you left, and everybody reminded me of the fact that you're so much cooler. They're like, it was a radio, right? A radio?
Yeah, a radio.
A radio wouldn't do it this way, man. He was a lot cooler than. Why are you being such an asshole? Like, I had to deal with that. Let's see. The other question was from Sierra Rocco. Oh my God, what is the broken arrow for?
Oh, what? I'm so glad someone asked that. What is the broken arrow for? Nothing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I was expecting you to laugh at that.
I was laughing.
The broken arrow. So maybe you can speak to this too as a designer, but a lot of my inspiration in writing lore stuff came from music I was listening to at the time. If I was writing like Troll, Shadow Knight quests, I was listening to Slayer and Tool and stuff, and if I was writing High Elven quests, I was listening to Dead Can Dance or Cocteau Twins or something like very sing-songy. And when I was writing the Shaman Epic, I was listening to I was still young, his like best of album.
Neil Young? You broke up
Neil
for a
Young,
second.
yeah.
Neil Young, okay.
Oh, yeah, Neil Young. And there was a song called Broken Arrow where he talks about a broken arrow. It's a beautiful song. It's really weird. It, you know, kind of references this Native American kind of thing. And that was the inspiration for the Broken Arrow. I just wanted to have a broken arrow in the game because of this Neil Young song.
Yeah.
And I had the idea that, you know, you would use the broken arrow later on for something. And I know that they were doing a, you know, there was supposed to be like 2.0 epic quests. And I remember talking to the EQT team to use the broken arrow in one of the 2.0 quests, but by that time, you know, it had been so long, people had probably destroyed the broken arrow. But that's the inspiration for the broken arrow. It was somewhere, but it didn't, and it was just a reference to that song. So if you kind of want to get into the Shaman Epic Quest, check out that song.
Now you know what music to listen to while you quest. Dude, that's great. What was your favorite Shaman race? And that was from ABQ SC2.
Well, I like the troll shaman. I have a Lobi shaman named Bach, a Lobi troll shaman. I just thought trolls were cool. I liked that they were more kind of cunning. They had like a cunning evil to them, as opposed to like an intelligent evil of the dark elves, or just like a brute evil of the ogres. And I liked the shaman idea that you could be that you could use the shaman. You could be an evil or good shaman. Right? You could go either way. I thought that was pretty cool, and so I liked that aspect of kind of dominating the world, as well as like working with the spirit world as like a barbarian, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But writing the shaman quest, I just thought what it was like to be a shaman, what the shaman experience was in the world of Norath, and I kind of wrote it from that perspective as opposed to any kind of racial perspective.
Right on. One more question. This one's a GM specific question. The Dantron asked, he asked me earlier whether or not I remember who GM Zolumbus was from Terramar, and if so, what was he like in real life? He was an absolute goof in game and made it a lot of fun. And I'm trying to remember who that was. The name sounds familiar though.
It doesn't sound familiar to me. I don't remember a Zolumbus at all.
I
But
wonder.
yeah. There was on Facebook. I have someone has a picture of all the old school GMs, like on the first day of launch, the GM roster. And I'm going to open it up and look at it now, see if I can find out Zolumbus, because it doesn't familiar. There are tons of people I don't remember. You know, it was a big team of people, especially when you joined. There was a ton of GMs I didn't know any of those people.
There was at least like 20 or 30 GMs by that point, or going from like 20 to closer to 30. Ardmore, thank you for the follow. I wonder if that's Eli.
Eli Holding.
Yeah.
Maybe, because I do remember him. And it's funny you mentioned Eli, because I worked with him.
Because he's like a gnome in real life.
What's that?
He was basically like a gnome in real life.
Yeah. So I don't see a Zolumbus on the original list. So he must have come later on.
Yeah,
I don't
because
remember.
I'm thinking either Eli or Derek, but the name sounds real familiar. I'll have
I
to dig
don't
around
think
for
that
that.
was Derek's name. Derek,
Okay.
maybe it was. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a heads up because time flies.
Yeah.
You're at, let's see, almost hour in because we started at 8, right?
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm just keeping track on your end. I'm here for a while, man. So, um, definitely feel free to stay as long as you'd like. But I just want to give you that heads up. So, one of the things that comes up in chat a lot while we're still in the sort of GM era is best of the best, the
Uh-huh.
tournaments. And I remember you being pretty involved in at least one when I was a GM because I remember you doing a bunch of work and stuff, setting stuff up. Is that correct? Do I remember correctly?
I remember kind of officiating some of the bests, and that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. You know, it was like commentary on like an esports commentator for a little bit. That was
Mm-hmm.
pretty fun. Um, I, I I only recall like the best of the best, um, where it was on my side, you know, it was this one monk who I knew and got along with, um, and then there was this Ixar monk who nobody knew who he was. He was just this like um, he just showed up and he was, you know, the he was the enemy. He was like the enemy, but he ended up winning, and it was like an upset, and it was very dramatic at the time. It was fun.
All right. Let's see. Was there another question related to that in here? Or was there a GM Island in Ocean of Tears? I don't remember that.
Ocean of Tears. No, I don't think so. I mean, we had the little interrogation rooms, you know, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
But and then there was the GM zone.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about it. I mean,
Right on. Another
yeah.
question about the monk epic is: were you guys aware that people would kill Brother Quinn and Zephyl for the robes and skip the Sash Headband quest? That was from Frank the Bank.
Yeah. So when I wrote the monk epic, it really just kind of the monk epic took over from the end of that quest line, the whole sash headband robe thing. So that all that stuff, I didn't have anything to do with that stuff. I just tacked on kind of the epic part at the end of all of that. Um, I'm sure you can skip it. I know that I've been involved in killing Brother Quinn myself. Uh, um, yeah, that wasn't all of my stuff was just tacked on the end. The Shaman Quest epic was a little different. I did write a lot of stuff from the very beginning to get those kind of those sew boots that you get and that shield and all that stuff. The kind of cool items you got on the way getting the epic quest. Uh, the monk was just really I just wrote kind of the very end of it where you just get the celestial fists and that's about it. That was the I think you had to turn in your last robe in order to start the monk epic quest.
So we have a question from C. Goodman. Can you ask about Raster? It's a horribly long camp, but it is one of my best high school memories. I camped him for hours and hours on a school night and decided I had one more spawn in me. He actually spawned and I got what I needed. It was amazing.
Uh, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I don't remember. I don't even remember Raster. That maybe that was something that happened before the part that I had written. I'm not sure. I don't
Okay.
remember Raster.
Raster of Guk. Yeah.
Raster of Guk. Yeah, I'm not sure what that was for. I don't remember what you got from Raster.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I see. You know, it's funny. I've been watching a little bit of the other videos that you have, and streams, and there's a lot of questions. This camp or that camp or this spawn and that spawn. And like, oh my god, it just takes where they think. There's a lot of stuff like that in the game where, like 8 hour times. I'm not really sure. I think, in the early days, had a rough idea of how long they wanted you to spend playing the game, because it was a subscription model and they wanted you to play it a certain amount of time. So a lot of that stuff just there to kind of to create that content, I guess.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in EQOA, because that's about EQOA, because we kind of tried to address some of that in EQOA.
Yeah, for sure. Czars, and what's my PW? I'm assuming what my password. Thank you for the follow. Oh man, I had it. I don't want to lose it. Shit. No, there was a question that came up earlier, or a comment actually that came up earlier. I think it was Turnip or somebody had said, it's amazing how much of the sort of like, well, I mean, honestly, the epic quests have it in their name, but like this is like key content that apprentices wound up putting in, like, because I've admitted to doing the Beast Lord epic, and you're telling the work you did on epics as an apprentice, and yeah, it was interesting times in that regard.
I think that strategy, that kind of management strategy, really informed a lot of design beyond that. I think that for a lot of different people, that instead of people who were, industry veterans, they really looked to people who were passionate, people who just wanted to play, or who just loved the game, and people who were energetic and just were ready to do a lot of for free. um, and I think it paid off for them. They had a lot of people who spent hours and hours, you and I in our 20s, doing something that we were super into, but maybe we didn't have the design chops, to really make sure it was tight, but
Yeah.
the passion was there, and that really came through in the content. I feel really good about, the Shaman quest. Someone posted the dialogue from that, and I like to read that sometimes. It's something I like, and I think just having young, energetic people, those things came out in the product. But we wrote a lot of stuff that, as apprentices, we wrote a lot of stuff, but we had other more experienced designers kind of look over it and help us implement that. So it wasn't just us. But maybe with the Beast Lord Advocate, it was kind of just you. I don't know.
I was always asking. I mean, it was always, hey man, I want to try this, or hey, I'm doing this, or hey, do you have any advice? And when people weren't too busy, I'd get answers. But yeah. All right. So, questions about work in Velious. What did you do in Velious?
Valley. So yeah, the Naginata quest, which was it was supposed to be it was supposed to be a level 55 quest, which that took up a lot of my time. It was supposed to be something big, but not quite epic. It was targeted towards the player who already had kind of a raiding guild, and could do high-end content. It's we call it the Naginata. I'm calling it the Naginata quest, but it's funny how we didn't have titles for quests. We just made the level 55 quest or something. The player kind of made their own labels, and I think they called it the Dragon Name Quest. The big part of the quest was yours, better the name of this dragon, and then trap it. Yeah, the spirit of Garzakor. Trap it in this Naganana that you have to make yourself with blacksmithing and stuff like that. Which was, I had to do some research on how Japanese swords and stuff were made. That was pretty cool. And that was like a big sweeping quest that I really liked. A lot of other little ones. There was there were these like gem rock dudes somewhere in Velious, and there was a quest to make them. They were like they were this collective quest to try to find out who their creator was, and they ended up just destroying themselves in this scripted thing that I wrote. There was a Kromzek, like a faction quest that I made.
Are you seeing chat?
Geonids, yeah. I don't remember what else I did on Velious. I feel like there was more, but I don't remember.
I run into that daily about so many things. I was like, I know I did more than like 3 encounters, one of which I get my balls busted for daily. But yeah, it's hard to remember all of that.
The other thing I did was that was cool is Bill wanted me to go into the Coldane City. I forget what it was called now. What was the Coldane City?
Thurgoden?
Thurgoden, yeah. That was Bill Coyle and I both. Our main characters were dwarves, so we were both kind of drawn to the dwarf race, and so he asked me to write a bunch of just implement a bunch of flavor, text, and fluff in the zone. So he wanted every single NPC in the zone to say something. So I went and added just all of this like kind of flavor text to Hail Quest or Hail text for everybody. That was fun. There was a guy who had a website who was very critical of EverQuest, and he I don't know, you might remember him, but I had written some flavor text for this one character who was sitting in a weapon Thurgoden, how he was an aspiring adventurer and he wanted to just go and save princesses and slay dragons and stuff. And he didn't want to spend time, agonizing over the stats of weapons or something like that. I made some reference to gamers and stuff, and overly concerned with number crunching, just in losing sight of just going and saving the princess and slaying the dragon. And he caught wind of that and posted on his website that he thought that was cool. That was kind of neat to hear him say that. And just I don't remember who that was, but that was kind of my whatever.
Was it Lum?
Yes, Lum the Mad. That's
Lum
right.
the Mad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was never like a big power gamer. I wasn't in the big raiding guilds. I was just a casual player who just liked the world and liked reading and writing the lore of it and stuff. And that's kind of where my specialty went.
Yeah. Kovac, thank you for the follow. Thanks for being here. Turnipchin asked, did you have anything to do with Tower of Frozen Shadow?
I put my favorite quest NPCs in there, but I don't even remember what the quest was for. It might have actually been for that quest, but it was just a ghost dwarf guy. I remember zone though as a player. I played him there a little bit, and I liked that zone, but I didn't initial population or anything.
Yeah, we're still trying to track down who worked on it. It was, for some reason, I keep thinking that it was maybe Jason Polk or Bill Coyle. So I'll keep digging.
Yeah, the dwarf that I put in there, he drops an axe called Abram's Axe of the Stoic, I think it was. And
Abram's Axe of the you broke up.
oh, Abram's Axe of the Stoic.
Stoic.
So Abrams was the first character on my server as a GM who hit level 50. He was a level 50. He was the first level 50 character on Bristlebane, I believe. And he was a baller. He had a full suit of rubicite, and he was dual wielding screaming maces, and he was the badass of the server. And he was a warrior, a dwarf on my main, so him and I talked a lot, and he was pretty cool. So I put in the game for him.
Super cool. All right, so I think we're caught up on questions, and so we're in the Velious era, and then I mean it feels like we're getting close to EQOA time. Like
Yeah. So you
what was
want me
that
to talk
transition?
about how I joined the EQOA team, or?
Absolutely. Oh, Frank the Bank. One more thing then. Frank the Bank said, did you or the Bard Epic creator, Bill Fisher, know that both your Carnor's epic pieces drop at the same camp?
I don't know, in Carnors? No, and I think it happens often. In Classic EQ, there's a couple of monsters that, like, I've run into this playing EQ, Classic EQ now. Karg Ice Bear, who is on an 8-hour spawn. He spawns all over Everfrost, so he's impossible to find. He's once every 8 hours. He's for a quest turn in, and he also drops like loot that people want. So, whenever people are fighting over, to either kill him to turn in quest, and it's like the experience ever. So if I had known that was happening in Carnors, I'm sure we maybe would have fixed that. But I didn't know that.
High level coordination at that point. In those days, that would have been high level coordination. One more question. Tulerezer, whose idea was it to make Ixar hated by everybody?
I don't know. I mean, that was like an early Kunark development. I was just a GM at that time. I really don't know. I think that was kind of written in the early days of EQ. You'd have this XR race that everybody hated. I'm not sure. Maybe that was a Bill Truss thing. I don't know.
I have to ask him. Let's see. Let's start moving into the EQA stuff if that's cool. Because I know we were talking about it earlier, and then we can snag some of these questions as we go.
So yeah, I was working as an apprentice. I'd been an apprentice for a while, and I get an email from somebody named Benjamin Bell, who I'd never heard of. It's like, hey, you want to come to my office and chat? And I was like, I have no idea who he was. Sure. So I go and talk to Ben Bell, and he says, yeah, we're working on an EverQuest for the PlayStation 2, and we're looking for designers, or for a designer. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, and I remember Steve was my roommate at the time, and I came home and I talked to some guy named Ben Bell today. And he's like, well, that sounds like that was a good conversation.
Who is your roommate? You broke up at that point.
Steve George.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember you had some comments about Steve George and being like Richard Pryor and being this party guy or something. He's like a high roller.
I don't know. I haven't said that on a stream. I might have said that in general. Steve is a hilarious personality. He's a rad guy.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember people like this chance to join to be hired as a designer on EQOA, but I didn't know what to. I wasn't sure about it. I was like, well, that's really weird. I don't like the normal path is you're an apprentice and then you eventually get hired on as a designer, and that's just what you do. So the idea of moving from EverQuest to some other project was totally new, and I wasn't sure about it. I remember talking to people like, should I do that? Should I join? I asked George, like, what do you think? Should I join this team? He's like, are you stupid? Of course, yes, join the team. That's a great opportunity. So yeah, I was like, okay, yes, you're right. I'm gonna join the team, and I kind of had this sort of interview asking me to talk about the Shaman EverQuest, and I sat there waxing poetic about the Shaman quest for a long time. And after 15 minutes, Rod was like, okay, fine, you know what you're talking about. We want you to be a designer. So yeah, I was the first designer, dedicated designer on EQOA. They had an idea for the game, and they needed somebody to show a lot of the initial content, a lot of the lore and stuff. So that's what I did. The first few months, I just sat stories about zombies and dragons and wizards and all that.
Who else?
Are you seeing me okay? Oh.
Yeah, I see. Who else was working with you on that at that time?
So Ben and Rod. I know Kevin Burns was there. Kevin Burns was one of the original EverQuest artists, the world artists.
Mm-hmm.
So he ended up, so EQOA was a prequel to EverQuest. It was supposed to be 500 years past from live EverQuest. So a lot of the zones Kevin Burns made, like the Fallen, he still had the old graph paper drawings of his dungeon maps and he recreated those in EQOA, which was pretty cool. So Befallen EQOA looks just like Befallen did on EverQuest, but 500 years past. I think he did Blackborough as well, so we had Blackborough as well, and I think Lower Guck he did, I think. So Kevin Burns was there. Vince Heron was the server programmer. We had a lot of rock stars on that game, on that project. I can't remember the other guy. There was another programmer who was like the best programmer team in the company. I can't remember it. Jeff Buckley. So we had a lot of really talented people there. There was this dude Kai who got hired to work on the character art and stuff like that. A lot of new people that I didn't know. Amanda Tarr was another programmer. She was there. So it was a small team to start out with. And so I wrote a lot of the initial content. And I don't know how long it took, but before we started hiring other designers. But
how is the process different, like between the two? I can only imagine the tool sets were different because EQ's tool set was, well, spreadsheets.
Yeah. EQOA, it was a chance for us to remake EverQuest in a way that we thought was cool. The big overarching thing from Rod was that we wanted to be able to play EverQuest's couch, and have it just be a casual, fun thing. So we also had this rule that any step in any quest could only last half an hour, because we wanted people to be able to log in for half an hour and accomplish something. So, even the high level quests that might take hours had to have that many steps, broken half an hour, which is cool. It was a great idea. We also wanted to reduce kind of, for at least at the time, it was either you're solo or you have 6 people. So all the content, all the high-end content was for, one or not one, but 6 people. You had to have 6 people, a full group at all times, to be able to accomplish much of anything, or more than that in these big raids and stuff. Which is when you think about it now, like I can't get 6 people together to do anything. When I was a kid playing D&D campaign, I never get 6 people to do anything, especially now when we're older. So it was kind of amazing that the game did as well with that kind of requirement. I think it was just an old legacy from D&D, like, a group is 6 people. That's just what it's supposed to be. So we wanted to change that with EQOA. The maximum group size in EQOA is 4 people. I thought that changed things a lot. It gave each person a greater share of kind of power overall. It made it easier to just get together with people and do stuff, because you only had 4 people.
So, do you remember? Sorry, do you remember the "It's Time to Slay the Dragon" commercial?
Yeah, I do. That was the rumor I heard that cost $6 million to make that commercial. $6 million, which was probably more than the development cost of the game. So we were in the hole. EQOA was in the hole for a long, long time as a project.
I've seen that happen a few times, man, where it's like I've seen it with like mobile games, where there have been mobile games that couldn't have cost more than a couple million to make, and they had like $20 million marketing budgets, like straight out the gate. No soft launch. It's just like, good luck on that one, guys.
I remember I was at my friend's house Saturday night. We played this. We had the Saturday night D&D, and we were sitting there watching TV, and then suddenly the EQOA commercial comes on. I'm like, "Oh, dude, guys, check it out! It's something done." And we sat there watching it silence for a while, and my friend, he's like, "That looks really bad." That looks like a really bad game, and it was pretty devastating, because I think I knew in my heart that graphically the game didn't look that great, especially compared to other PS2 games. And that was, I think, not really understanding the limitations of the platform. EverQuest was a PC game where you could have, your system requirements could be enormous, and you would be fine. And you tried to keep them low to get more people into your game, but it was, you can make it really big and no one would care. But the PS2 had really, really small video RAM, basically. It was just really, really draw, very much, really. But EverQuest's big thing, and this came from SMED, was that, in EQA, we wanted you to look out on the horizon and just on this whole big world horizon and just run in a direction and just keep going, and there would be no loading screen. There would be no streaming wasn't a thing back then, but you could just run. They wanted this seamless world. They needed a seamless world, and so that put a big constraint on counts of everything. You had to be able to look around this giant horizon. So everything, the polycounts of everything had to be really, really tiny. And it's really amazing how cool things looked. The EQOA art team was amazing.
I mean,
small resources.
A lot of constraints, pretty small team, still pulled off a game that was like fun. It was like genuinely fun. We were all playing it and really enjoying it. I mean, hell, people didn't have the network adapter yet, right? Like the whole concept of it was in the usual Sony fashion, a bit ahead of the curve.
And that I think the subscription model really freaked people out. Like, you want me to pay $10 a month for my PS2 game? Like, nobody tried that. It was totally new for that audience. So I think that really scared a lot of people off.
We were having that conversation years later with DC Universe, right? Like that was still a conversation because it was a console game. And even when that came out in like 2011, it still wasn't something that most people were acclimated to on console, or at least that was the belief. So you guys were out. When did that come out?
I had to do some homework to find that out. It released February 11th, which was a day after my birthday, in 2013. And then we released the first and only expansion, EQOA Frontiers, in November that year. So turn around for that.
2013?
2013, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Not 2003?
I'm sorry, 2003, yes.
I was about to say.
2003.
The missing decade.
Yeah, right. But to go back to your question about the tools and stuff, it was very different. We had a chance to kind of improve things. So Vince Herron, I don't know if did you ever interact with Vince Herron very much?
Yeah, a lot in passing. And especially when I was going through the sort of period of the pitch period, interacted with him and Ben and Matt Broom a little bit more. But yeah.
Vince was, one of our, star programmers, I think, for the company, and he was the server guy. And I know when I worked with him a little bit, but I'd heard that he didn't really like designers very much. He thought, I heard that he thought that designers were just glorified testers. So one of the things that he wanted to do in EQOA was to make sure that designers couldn't break anything. So I don't know if you remember in early EverQuest toolset, there was a form, like a form mode where you could go to a form that would link to the different tables and stuff, but the form just didn't run at all. It was really it was unusable. It was too slow.
It was super clunky.
Yeah. So
access.
he wanted to make a form-based kind of tool set. So that was the main thing. We changed. We made it all kind of form-based, and it worked. And it was fine. It was good. We didn't have direct access to all of the SQL database kind of stuff. And I know that a lot of designers who came over from EQ to help us out on EQOA, like Dan Enright and Bill Coyle and stuff, they kept trying to find ways to get around it and just directly access the SQL. And Vince Herron had to keep shutting them down. Later on, they got the ability to do that, but I helped to design that design tool. I had a lot of the initial kind of system, how that worked, and it was just basically like was like a quest with like you just you just had to pick like a starting NPC and add link a bunch of different tables and stuff. But it was similar, but it was just to use that form to access it.
Yeah, because I remember the form was shown to me when I first got into the database as like a way of visualizing the data. It looked like D&D character sheets and pen and paper, just sort of sheets. But it was not it was so much easier to just get into each one of the tables and run queries. And yeah, once you got to the mode where you understood what stuff was, then it was just like so much faster just working Excel.
Yeah, that was a problem for us actually in QA. It was really easy to get in and make one quest on your own. It was really easy to do that. You could populate a zone easily, but when you had to make large scale changes to stuff, say you had to go and change the damage values of every single weapon in the game or something, you couldn't do it. You'd have to go open every single item sheet over again and change each one. Um, and for a while, that's what we had to do. I know, Michelle Butler, she came on the team at one point, and she didn't, didn't really come from a place that the other designers came from. She was like the head of GM. She did a lot of personnel management kind of stuff. But she found her niche to do all that quickly, like work with this tool that wasn't really designed to make lots of major changes all at once. She would just grind through it really quickly, faster than any of us could do it. But it was a problem. Later on, they had to let us access the database directly, just because it was in live development. We had to make major changes and stuff.
Yeah,
I
mean, every MMO I've worked on since, like, this has been a topic and a warning early on. It's like, guys, you're working in, like, if it's an MMO, at some point you're going to be talking about 65,000 items or whatever it is, and there's got to be access to that data. Plus, just workflow a lot of times. If you need to generate 15 items or 20 items or X number of NPCs and you want to make them unique, it's got to work with scale. Michelle comes in. She's been in chat a few times the last few days.
Oh, cool.
So starting last week, I think she appeared here, I believe last week, maybe even prior. But yeah, so Michelle's around. I'm going to try to get her on as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to check again. All right, we're at 9:30 almost my time. Do you need a break? Bio break? Anything like that? Grab a drink?
I'm yeah, can you give me 10 minutes? I'm doing laundry, so I'm going to go put my laundry away. Can you give me 10 minutes?
Yeah, so what I'll do is, and just to see if it helps, what we may do is, in the call, recall to see if there's any sort of loss that happens on Discord. I'll take a quick break as well, and I'll just be waiting right here in chat for you. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
See you
in 10. All right, guys, you heard us. I'm going to take a quick bio break, get a little bit more beverage, and I'll be right back. And then we'll reconnect and continue the discussion. You guys grab beers. It's Monday, right? Yeah, so you definitely need beer. Be right back. All right. I'm back. It's Fika time here in MT. Where's MT? I know what Fika time is. Kovac, if I didn't say it earlier, thank you for the follow. Welcome. Montana. Bruce Lee. It took me a second, but I got it. Bruce Lee. Welcome. So, in having to set everything back up, now it's back to playing games with the green screen again. So, you just went back to watch the EQOA commercial. What do you think? Time to slay a dragon? All right. That's a little bit better. What? That should be what you call your subs, Dragon Slayers Club. So, yeah, it's interesting the things that happen sometimes with marketing of games, especially back then. It wasn't always, and I'm not saying this is what happened with that one, but it wasn't always the sort of tightest integration between marketing and the development team. So yeah, sometimes you'd run into some stuff like an EverQuest ad. I could have sworn it was an EverQuest ad that we saw at some point. I don't remember where it appeared, but it was an EverQuest ad that appeared somewhere. And the model who was supposed to be like the warrior in EverQuest, she was wearing like, and maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I swear it was an EverQuest ad. I don't think it was for another game. But she was in like a gold-plated thong in a gold just sort of bikini top kind of thing with her sword. And we were like, the team was just like, yeah, it's like chainmail bikini. And we're just, the entire team was just like, guys, that looks like nothing in our game. Like that, it just didn't look like anything, right? And, you know, to the team's credit back then, it was immediately acknowledged and just not stoked. No, it wasn't even a Furiona thing. It was just something out there. It was just out there, reminiscent of like Heavy Metal the movie or something. But yeah, so sometimes those things did not match. Nope. I don't think it was meant to be either one of them, Antonia or Furiona. It was just like a random thing that popped up. I'll have to dig around and see if I can find it. Oh wait, crap. It should make you uncomfortable. Why isn't... Alright. Stop showing you. Thank you. Thank you for Bunny. Thank you, Bunny. I thought that had disappeared. How did I not see it on the screen there? Oh my god. Did I click the wrong thing? Well-oiled machine, guys. Yeah, we're back now. Can you believe I don't drink on the stream? Jasmine's got some really nice wine over there. I wouldn't mind having some, but I can barely make this shit work right sober. I don't know. Maybe I would be better if I had a little bit of a drink in me. Have I ever drank on stream? I did over the weekend, yes. Was it Saturday? Yeah, because it was just nothing was working. It was still, I couldn't figure out the issue with the stream. And Jasmine and I had gone for barbecue and beers. We did barbecue and beers, and it was nothing but F-bombs. So I apologize for that. Sorry about that, Ethan. But I was doing it. How could you not hear me gulp just then? Do not sit close to the mic. So you said do not sit. No. Close to the mic, though. Hearing gulping on other people's streams is annoying to no end. Okay. Because I'm pretty sure you can hear me when I use the Fisherman's Friend. I know that makes some sounds. I know the drink makes some sounds.
So annoying.
Tipsy trade skilling may actually turn into a thing, the Dantron, but not with the language I was using the other day. That was not good. I was so aggravated with the stream. Now I'm afraid to gulp. Ethan's coming for me. Ray Boss says you need to get the 36-hour stream snack packs and coffee ready. Good point. Keebs, I'm going to have to consult you. We'll have to discuss snacks and drinks. We know now that we don't want Sean to drink for his talk shows. Yeah, after that display the other day. Now you know why I don't do it.
They don't want you to what?
Hmm?
They don't want you to what?
Drink during the talk show. Hashpipe says, I punch my mic on stream by accident more often than I like to admit. It happens, right? You can drink beer and wine through a straw. All right. We're going to reactivate Discord. See how this goes. Bear with me, folks. Wait. I'm going to pop you out. Minimize Discord. And if I do this, nope. Let me. Properties. All right. Boom, you're back. So
Nice.
Everybody should be able to see you now. I think nothing changed on the audio settings, so they should be able to hear you. Is your mic is it just on, or is there a threshold that you have to talk to get it to pop up, like turn on?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's the voice to activate thing, so maybe I should switch it back to the push to talk just to make
No,
sure.
I think voice activate's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's triggering fine. It may just be the Discord stutter that we get every once in a while. But I was thinking about that when I went to grab my drink. So all right. So we left off, we were discussing EQOA. There is a question from Ethan. So Jeremy, what are you doing now? Are you still working in games? We could work up to that, back from that.
So no, no, I'm no longer a game designer. I'm a former game designer. But we can kind of the rest of my career quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, EQO, is expanding. The numbers for EQOA were pretty cool. I think really expecting it to blow up and just didn't quite get there. Um, it stayed for almost 10 years, I think, which is surprising. Actually, it eventually made money on that giant commercial budget, but it made money. And so, yeah, we were working on, we released that expansion. We were working on a second, which was going to be really cool. Really excited about it. It was going to be an underfoot expansion. And at first, no one thought that would work because you would have to render the ceilings of all the caverns that you would be in, which is just too much rendering. The game was already hitting the limit of the PS2. But then I thought, like, why do we have to render the ceiling? Why don't we just use the skybox instead of drawing the sky? Just draw what looks like the top of a cavern.
All right.
Be black. And they were like, oh, okay, let's try it and see. And so they put up a demo, and it looked really cool. It looked like you were in a giant cavern. So we were going to do this whole underground expansion. But the numbers just didn't add up, and so we got canceled. And at that point, they moved me on to EQ2, where I worked for. We talked about this earlier. I worked for 2 weeks on EQ2 until I decided. I went to lunch and to Red. You remember Red at the mall?
You broke up both times you said the name, so you'll have to say it one more time.
We went to Red Robin. I don't remember if you remember Red Robin. And they had pints of beer, or they even have like a 22-ounce glass, and I drank a couple of those because I was really unhappy on EQ2. So I went back to work, and I was already kind of drunk, and decided I was going to write a resignation letter. Like, I wasn't happy to do, and I was ready to quit. But then Jeremy Albert came up to me and was like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And I told him I was writing my resignation letter, and he walked away. And later that day, an hour later or something, Ben, Bell, and Rod called me into their office and was like, "Hey, we don't want to lose you. What do you want to work on? You're not happy anymore. What do you want to work on?" And I hadn't expected that they were going to do anything like that. But they gave me a chance to work on what Rod was working on, which was Ancient Glory, which was it was a melee-based kind of combat. There was this MMO called, it was like a World War II MMO that had this ongoing campaign that would. So Ancient Glory was like the version of that. So we were working on something like that.
World War II Online.
Yeah. And so we worked on that for a little while. It never got past alpha. We were the old EQA team kind of stuck together, and they were trying to find a project. And we worked on a supernatural kind of idea for a little while. We worked on a Harry Potter MMO idea for a little while until J.K. Rowling decided that she wanted way more money, so that fell through. Then we were on a Marvel MMO until we lost the license to some other company, and then we started working on DCO. Or we didn't work on DCO, but I think some of the initial design that we did made it over to DCO. I'm curious to see what you said, but if you remember any of that. But
yeah, I remember there was some carryover there at the beginning. Yeah, when we were still designing in San Diego before I moved to Austin. There was like looking at ideas and stuff. Ultimately, that game got redesigned. I don't know, 4 or 5 or a dozen times in the 5 years it took to put out. So who knows?
Yeah. We had an idea for that game of having like offline progression, which is kind of a thing, which is now really common. But that was supposed to be kind of a thing in the Marvel MMO we were working on. But let's see. So I bounced around, and then finally we landed kind of on a Free Realms team. So I did a lot of very initial design of Free Realms. And it was really, we didn't know what. Did you guys hear cat? Like, my cat Krusty just walked in. Anyway, yeah, we worked on Free Realms a little bit. Free Realms didn't really have a coherent idea yet. It was very more kept changing a lot, and then I moved to the Untold Legends team because they needed some help. I worked with Rich Waters on that team, and some other folks, Paul Carrico again, and John Troy, and did a lot of scripting stuff. But I think at that time I was pretty burnt out. Working in all projects and getting really into them. I had never read Harry Potter books, and so after reading all, several of those books and then having it kind of pulled away from us, it kind of a bum. So I really was at my best. I was working on Untold Legends, and I was an EverQuest designer, so I was using my EverQuest skills on this PS3 platform that, it just didn't quite fit. So after Untold Legends was moved back to the EQ1 team for a little bit, and I started kind of realizing that I needed to move on. Ben Bell and Rod Humble had left, and they were kind of like my best allies there, and so I left and got a job at EA with Ben Bell and Rod Humble, where they moved to, and I worked on The Sims for a little while. It was a weird Sims project, like side thing. Supposed to be kind of like YouTube, but instead of uploading videos, you would upload these little tiny micro games that you made with our proprietary tool. So I helped to design kind of that tool. That it was like a programming tool. That, kind of like there's MIT made something similar called Scratch, where you kind of used pieces of code like puzzle pieces, put them together to make games. And so we were dependent on the users of our game to kind of create our content. But it turns out making is really hard, even micro games. So most people aren't going to spend the time to make those kinds of games. And so that didn't pan well. But I moved on to the Sims 3 project for a little while and worked on that. But I was only there for a few months before I just decided I kind of didn't want to work in games anymore. And right before the 2000 economy tanked, I decided I was going to quit, which was kind of a mistake. If I had stuck around for another 6 months, I'd probably been laid off with a nice fat severance. But
yeah, we were talking about that last night, I think. Because I had never been laid off before until my first time, of course, right? And that was 11 years in at Sony. I didn't even know I was I guess I knew I was going to get a check. I just didn't really have a concept of it until then. But yeah.
Yeah, so I was unemployed for like a couple of years living in San Francisco, trying to figure out what to do. I went back to school a little bit to try to study English. And I started to run out of money, and I got really nervous, and I joined this team. It was this startup project that was in San Francisco working on this MMO. And I was there for like a month and a half, and I got fired. I just straight up got fired. Eli Holding actually was there. I remember he was a designer too, and it was a startup. You know, it had a startup culture. It was very just like work super duper hard for free, and hopefully, you know, the game will do well, and we'll compensate you later. And they had this idea that the tool would, you know, you would just log into the server and just, you know, you would all your design work on the server like real time, which, you know, if you're in a beta environment on a server and you're trying to do work, like the server was never stable enough to actually do anything. So I don't know, it was kind of a train wreck project, but and I didn't really want to be there either. I think I just took the job because I got nervous.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, that's not something I put on my resume. It was just it was a bad spot in my career. But I was unemployed for a little while longer, and then I reached out to Dan Enright, who I worked with on EQ, and he was working on an MMO here in Boston. So I came out here and interviewed. It was a very complex team. It was us here in Boston working alongside a team in China, and so yeah, it was. And there was a really nasty dynamic there. Like they brought us in because, you know, the U.S. market was so much more developed in terms of like MMOs. Like they just had no expertise, and China was a really new market for MMOs, so they wanted some expertise to kind of work with them, but they didn't help. You know, that team didn't really want us to be there, so there was very combative, and it was a weird time. So eventually those teams split. I was working for Tencent Boston, which is a colossal Chinese company, but nobody knows about it here really. But after that MMO kind of got canceled and the teams split up, they were going to give us one more chance to make something. And we made a Facebook game called Robot Rising. It was kind of like a robots, which was really cool. But you know, that team was really cool too. We got a lot of amazing talent, especially the artists. But I think we had. And I'm curious to see what you say about this, Sean. But I feel like a lot of companies kind of have like a cynical approach towards their player base. You know, they think, you know, look at Farmville. It's a stupid game. It's like totally dumb, worthless, but people pay tons of money to play it. So we'll just like launch whatever, and people will play it. And I think that was kind of the attitude with Robot Rising a little bit, and you know, other games like Untold Legends. You know, I know that both it's a generation game on a new console. That those make money no matter what they are.
I feel like, I mean, I've got the natural cop-out answer for that. It is company specific and it's situational, right? And what I think I've seen at least, and again, this is just one perspective over a brief amount of time. I mean, it's been 20 years, right? So it's still like, I'm still figuring it out. What I've seen is, if it's like a new console release. So I'm not going to say Untold Legends was this specifically. I wasn't there for all of it, but let's just use like a hypothetical. In a situation like that, what might have happened? What might have happened is we have a release date. We have an opportunity to be on this thing when it first comes out. There's going to be pretty finite number of games. So the focus is how do we hit the date? How are we there for the window? First and foremost, we need to be there when the thing goes live. Especially if we're not something that somebody's going to want to wait on, right? Like if you're the new Killzone or something during that era, fine, then maybe you can be a little bit late or something. But even then, I'm sure they were smashing themselves against the rocks to hit the date. And then the other thing is there a key? What are we showing off? Is it the technology, right? Like, what is the key feature? If it's like, oh, Xbox 360 or whatever, and we want to showcase live or online play, then it's going to be those things driving most of it. And then some of the other stuff like fun or longevity or whatever may fall in a bit behind. I think what you're describing, though, with regards to some of the Facebook games or, hey, whatever, let's emulate Farmville. I do think I've seen, especially in free to play, a higher threshold for cynical sort of approach. But I've also seen something that's not as much cynicism as it is math, where they're like, because I've seen some games that should not be making money make money. And it just comes down to math on the back end. And the more I've learned about like user acquisition and other things, it really comes down to, if we can find users at this cost and they can generate, basically this much revenue, and the revenue is, basically higher than our break even, and we've got payout windows of X number of months, and you're looking at calculating return on ad spend and whatever the latest CPI of the month is, right? Then cool, that makes sense. And it doesn't have to be a great game. It doesn't even have to be a good game. It does have to be a game that hits the math. And some of that is just region specific or whatever. But yeah, so it's a long, very generalized answer. I'm not excited about working at a company, even if they've got a good history of getting the math right, like a Machine Zone or something like that. Because I think over time, the math goes away. Like over time, if they don't really make some shit that people are excited about, especially people working on it, then it'll show.
Yeah, and it's I use Farmville as an example, but I think a lot of people misjudge that sort of stuff. Still, I think people play it, or they did play it because it's a fun game. Like it's a good game, but people think that they're terrible for whatever reason. I think they misjudge it, and then they go and make what they think is an emulation of that game, but it really doesn't capture what made it good.
Right. No, that's a great point too, because I was shocked at the company I went to in Germany. I met a fellow producer, Varun, who we're still really close friends, right? He's like one of my go-to guys in the industry these days if I have questions about technical things that I don't fully understand, especially when it comes to like product management stuff. He worked on the various like Farmville, Yeovil, Otherville games early in his career, and then he took over a game at that company that was Farmerama. It was like this German company, and they had it. And when I saw how they operated behind the scenes, first of all, they really did love the game. And they really were trying to generate like fun, cool shit. The artist did amazing stuff on this older game. And he took experience from like those early Farmville games and stuff like that, and used it both on the gameplay side and the production side, just in how they ran live operations. And that team was just fantastic. You go down there, like they had their shit together, but they also knew exactly what their customer wanted, and they had a very specific customer in mind. So yeah. All right.
It's when people have that understanding and really value their player base. I think really awesome stuff. And I think that Robot Rising was a really fun game. I had a lot of fun in it. But it was weird. There was no. There were a lot of reasons that I think people didn't quite enjoy. Some of my own work. I don't think, but I did like a lot of the stuff that I did on that project. But so it didn't do so well, and they laid off maybe 3/4 of the team, including myself. So I was on unemployment again for a year. And I got close to finding work other places, but it never really fell through. So I started to kind of rethink what I wanted to do. Before I even got into the games industry, I was into I worked in a lot of food service stuff, so I really liked food. I like cooking food and talking about it and eating it. So I started working truck. It was a lot of fun. I'm a much better cook now than I was when I started. But yeah, I realized I was a little too old to kind of go down math, really, or that's what it felt like. If I were 10 years younger, I think I would have delved into the food. I wanted to own a restaurant or something. But so now I work at the grocery store. I work at Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
And yeah, and I get to food. I get to eat food. I'm a manager there, so it's funny. They really care about management there. I've learned more about managing people at the grocery store than I ever learned in the games industry.
I can imagine. There's a critical question in chat from Frank the Bank. How do you feel about bread? This has come up in previous streams.
How do I feel about bread?
What are your thoughts on bread?
Well, I mean, so I had mentioned that I used to be a baker. So
that's right, at the beginning of the stream.
Yeah, a couple of years I was a baker. I worked in an artisan bakery, baking, baking like French style bread and stuff. I love bread. It kind of spoils you though when you get to eat fresh bread right in the oven, all day at work. But it was.
Akil.
I love bread.
So
Akil. That's right. I've seen.
Bread. The end of Akil's stream was bread, and then we'll go into the beginning of yours where you're giving your background in baker, just transition in.
Yeah, Akil. Yeah, he was posting some really nice pictures of bread that he was baking. I saw that.
So
and I think you knew a guy who you used to work with in the industry and opened a bakery, right? I feel like I remember that.
Yeah, so he almost opened a bakery. There's a bit of a tragic story on that one. I won't get into it, but because actually I'll hint on it because I'm not using any names yet. So he almost owned a bakery because when he got done being a pastry chef, he left the games industry, became a pastry chef, went to school for it. And then he was working at a bakery when he got out of school, and the guy that was running, that owned the bakery as a family bakery, it died during that period, and they were pretty close. And so I know he was attempting to buy the bakery, and then with the family, it never sort of worked out. But I remember we went in there and helped him clean the place up and get it ready just in case, and all this stuff after his mentor died. And it was a real bummer because he's super into it, right? But since then he's also become a sailor, and so he's like a sailing pastry chef. Those are his skills now. I don't think he actually does those things together necessarily, but yeah. But dude, he was amazing. We'd go up there to have game night, and he would cook 5 different pizzas and have all this badass fresh bread, and it was just the most beautiful dough.
I mean, it's funny that I take a lot of what I learned in the game industry working in a restaurant or in a grocery store. You're always hyper aware of the user experience. What's the user here? You walk in the door and you're looking at this display, or looking at a plate of food, and you're and that's always drives kind of things I make outside of the game industry. Is just putting yourselves in the place of the user. So I learned it seems unapplicable, but it is the game design.
I have used that analogy so many times. I'm not lying. Like, something about game design and food. It's the experience. And I've even talked about the way that I like to cook, because even if I'm making 5 things at once, like, over time you learn what to start when, so that you can have everything done in the right order, and you clean up as you go. And so, like, or maybe you don't, I do. So by the end of it, I can have like this nice meal, all Thanksgiving, whatever, done. And shit's already basically in the dishwasher or clean or ready to go. No big mess, counter sort of wiped down, that kind of thing. And it was like to me, it was weird, because game design informed how I thought about cooking, but cooking then sort of translated back into how I could improve working as a developer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Especially that idea of cleaning as you go, and that's all you're juggling. Especially, like, I know you've worked in production a while, and you're constantly juggling all these things all at once. And that's what you do when you're cooking all the time. A million different things you're working on all at the same time.
Yeah, and no, I was just about to say the balancing act and blah blah blah. I was about to say some shit that's kind of obvious and redundant, so I just stopped myself. Bunny says food is a human constant and brings people together and is relatable to everyone. It's very important. Yes, I agree. Sliced bread is the devil. It ruined appreciation for real bread. Yeah, so there's a lot of bread talk going on. You can catch up in the chat on that one. Keebs asks, question: if Sean decides to make the next best game ever, are you available? LOL, joking, not joking.
My girlfriend asks me a lot, like, how come you're not, pursuing game jobs anymore? And I haven't been in the industry for like 7 years, and when I describe my career, it really, like, after after EA, my career just kind of took this slow dive, and my resume doesn't look very good. It looks, it has like this downward kind of trajectory, and if I even found a job in game design, I don't know that if I could do it. I do want to pursue, like, I do want to get into the modding community, and that's something I'm kind of interested in, like modding, like Mountain Blade and and stuff like that. But that's the most I think I want to get into.
But I think that might be fun, man. Like, you just put a little time aside and keep it fun, keep it hobby, right? Like, and just go, all right, I'm going to take, whatever it is, this day a week or this day a month or whatever, to just focus on it. Take it seriously, but like treat it like it is a hobby, and see if the passion's kind of there or not. Like, I think for a lot of people, you've got to do the check as well. It's like, is the passion there? Because
some of the most talented people I worked with, like Matt Broom. Matt Broom is the most incredible artist I've ever seen, like ever, like way on the skill of anybody else I've worked with. And I've worked, on the Robot Rising. There was another guy, Raf Besnier. He's an incredible artist. So when you see those people, they're always drawing. They're always doing it.
Yeah.
They can't stop it. And I've met programmers like that who are just constantly, they're just always doing math. They're always figuring out how to do something, you know, and designers, you know, they're always tinkering with something, messing with something, always trying to break something. um, and, you know, after I got laid off, I was trying to like keep in that. I was like tinkering with a board game I was working on. I was, you know, talking to Derek a lot because he got into board games.
That's right.
And yeah, and he had some success over there. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I hit some design walls in my board game, and I didn't have that like drive to really solve it. You know, like I didn't want to be working on this idea constantly, and so I didn't quite have what those guys had. So it just kind of informed me as, you know, maybe I need to step away and do something, work on something else. So if you had an idea for a project, I wouldn't hire me. I don't think you would hire me either. Not right now, anyway. Maybe after I mod something cool. Because after playing EQ, all I want to do now is, after playing EQ Classic recently, I want to fix it all. I just want to make my own EverQuest.
It's weird how that happens, right? Like the more I play, the more that whole joke about making a game seems a little bit less like a joke. I've got some stuff coming up that is, you know, potentially going to be near games, but not in games. We'll see if that stuff comes together. And then after that, maybe we'll see what happens. But I'm kind of cyclic as well. Like it just kind of, and sometimes I really feel it, and other times I don't. And then when I don't, like I don't feel like I really feel obligated to go to the team and be like, hey guys, I need to do something else, because I don't want to be at a place just to have it be a job, right? Like I want to be passionate about what I'm doing. And I've been fortunate enough to have that opportunity to be able to do that. Ethan says in chat, it took 20 years, but Wizard of the Coast bought an AD&D campaign from them 5 years ago. Wasn't much money, but they bought it, and I was happy. But they never published it. And yeah,
wow, that's awesome, Ethan.
That's badass.
That's really cool.
And to your thing though, my thing, I don't give a shit what your resume looks like, right? Like for me, it's about people. You know, and I feel like one of the things that I've at least been able to maintain some degree of passion about is working with cool people. And it comes down to like people's character and sort of what they've got, like what they're about. I'm not as worried about their CV. I mean, CVs are typically good for if you don't know the people, trying to get some idea of who they are. Oh, you just got super pixely. You're like a mosaic right now.
Internet isn't like the best in the world, but
if you hold very still, there you go.
So Turnip said, Turnip June, if you have any Bannerlord mod ideas, hit me up. I am absolutely going to do that. That is really exciting. I wonder if you had the same experience, Sean, but you know, I'm a designer, or I was a designer, like just a designer. I think nowadays you can't be just a designer. You have to be a designer / artist. You have to be a designer / programmer. You have to be a designer / janitor or something. You know, you can't just be a designer.
Well, that was always my niche. Designer janitor. Now I'm not even bullshitting. Like I was designer that was like willing to do, I mean, that's how I met you. I'm like, hey dude, if you show me how to do this, I'll do data entry for you. Right. Like,
so yeah, as a designer, we're totally dependent on the artist and the programmers and the production people to actually make it happen. So as much as I want to get into Bannerlord and make some changes, and I have that I want to change simple ideas, but I could definitely use the help of a programmer to make that happen. So Turnip, I'm going to really look you up on that. And I do want to make a emulator. There's a lot of like unique servers that people are publishing, and I'm really curious to see how that all works.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the tools are getting better. They're getting more intuitive. There's more, you know what I mean? There's more available out there. And I love that things like Roblox are driving that even more, and that younger generations are having it be more accessible. So I tell you what, man, like, you're in our Discord. Just keep hanging out. We'll figure some shit out. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to.
And I also think the stuff that we were talking about earlier offline, like when I hit like my toughest point in the industry and in life, basically same time, nice overlap. I'm glad they came together and not separate. It would suck to do that twice.
Right.
But like, when I hit that, there was also the realization of like finding the thing that's the right thing, where you feel good at night, or you feel good in general, right? And I'd also say that if you're at a point, you're working for a rad company. Like, it's known to be a good company. You're learning, awesome stuff in terms of like management and stuff like that. I would also say that if you're at a point where you're like, hey, I'm going to make games as a hobby, but I'm going to continue to grow and develop in the field that I'm in, then I think that makes absolute sense as well.
Did you break up there, or you still there?
I might have broken up on your end.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when I went to EA and started working on this project, I had actually, it's funny, I had a chance to either go to EA or to go to THQ and work on a Dawn of War game. And I love Dawn of War. I love the whole Warhammer universe and everything. And I sometimes wonder how my life would have turned out if I went to, or not Montreal, to Vancouver and worked for THQ. But I took the EA job because it felt like more of a career move, like I would be working in more of a kind of almost like a lead role. So I took that job, thinking it would advance my career, and I tried to like be into the project, but the project itself, I just wasn't committed. I couldn't drink that Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So, and then when I went to the company in Boston, it was kind of the same thing. Like the project was fun and it was really hard, but I just wasn't super into the core idea. Like I wrote EverQuest. Like EverQuest, I played it. I was like, this is awesome. Like this is an avenue for really cool, fun stuff, and it's all there, and I have the tools to make it happen. And, I had a ton of fun doing that. But there was a guy at another client I worked with at Tencent. This guy Matt, who he said, "Fake it till you make it," and I can't do that. Like I can't. Some people are good at doing. They're good at their job, and they have the discipline to make it work. But I just can't. I have to be really into a project to be able to excel at it, and it's hard to come by sometimes.
Yeah, no, I 100% can relate to that. And if I'm not into it, it's real rough.
It's a drag.
I just feel dishonest almost, right? Like I just don't want to. This is something Jasmine and I have talked about in the past as well. I'm like, I'd rather put myself at jeopardy in a sense and go try to figure something else out, even without a good plan in place, than to keep going to a place where I'm not excited. And it's weird. It's counterintuitive. It's definitely, I've run into it in the past where I'm like, oh, this is not the smart move I'm making. But it's definitely, something that I felt. Turnip has an interesting point in here. I saw you smirk. Was that at the you forsook you forsook the God
I
Emperor?
forsook the God Emperor. Yes, I did. And I some of the best years of my life were in San Francisco, and I really kind of where I wish I love that place, and that was I experienced that because of EA. But sometimes I wish I had gone to THQ. THQ in Vancouver, I think they tanked as well later on. So I don't know. It would have been interesting to see how that turned out.
Yeah, and to Term's point, don't doubt your abilities. Imposter syndrome is a real thing, but you can always hang your hat on the fact that you've made a game beloved by many thousands of people to the point where we are still playing 20 years later. I program for a career every day, and imposter syndrome is something I struggle with on bad days. I struggle with it on good days. I struggle with it just period. It's insane.
Absolutely.
It's so tough.
There were times on Robot Rising, so I was in charge of writing the story of Such as It Was and the character progression kind of stuff, and I didn't really have the math skills to make it very elegant, kind of, but and it just every day felt like I don't know that I'm smart enough to do this. I don't. And it is totally a thing, imposter syndrome. It just takes a lot of work to on that.
I don't know a solution to it. Like I've never gotten beyond it. I struggle with it constantly. Like it's always, and it's so weird too, because for me, it'll also come in waves. Like there will be those times where I'm like, oh, clearly I know this. And then something will happen. I'll be like, oh shit. Like, did I somehow stumble into this place? Like, who did I trick? How did I trick them? Were they stoned that day? Like, like how did I make it through this interview, right? And it's such a thing to contend with, especially when you've got a team relying on you, or a group of people, or as a designer, people coming to you for answers. It's like, what the hell do I know?
Yeah, I have anxiety dreams where I'm sitting in the office and some Chinese person I've never met before comes into my office to tell me I'm fired, like from working on Tencent. It's really it's difficult to deal with that. But I want to tell one quick story about that makes me feel really good about the time I spent on EQ, since Turnip brought it up. But I was one of the quests I did is I did a quest line for XR warriors for armor, and so the idea of each piece of armor, you were supposed to go to a different guild leader and learn what it meant to be a Shadow Knight or a Shaman or something like that. And I warrior on the main server. That was my main character, and so did you. I think you had a Dark Elf warrior or something.
I had a half elf warrior, but I preferred the dark elf look. Yep.
Oh, right, that's right. So I really felt I understood the kind of the warrior and kind of spirit of being able to EverQuest, and so I something like so what was it? As a warrior, our role is to protect the other, our leaders, and there was some line in there in the quest dialogue where it said, when others fall to spear and swords, we must stand. And that was really dramatic to me, and I really, really liked that. I thought it was really fitting. When others fall to spear and sword, we must stand. So in one of those quests, you're supposed to go to the Shadow Knight guild leader, and they send you on this quest. And the story is that there's this, apprentice, like Shadow Knight, who went on a mission and he was captured, and he's captured in Dalmir, I think it was the dungeon that had the floating mouths. Dalmir or something, I don't know. But he's in there, and you're supposed to, he got captured. So go down and find him and take care of it. And the quest dialogue is very vague. It just says like just take care of it. There's no really specific goal. So you go down there and you find the guy, and he's trapped. He's like standing next to some shackles, and you hail him, and he tells you, "Oh man, thanks for I'm paraphrasing. Thanks for coming to save me. I'm locked up here. What you need to do is get me some weighted wire to cut through the lock, and then I can escape." So, based on that quest dialogue, they're like, "Okay, fine. I'll go kill some dwarves and get some serrated wire, and you bring it back to him, and you free him." And then he's like, "Oh, great, thanks a lot. I'm gonna go back to the guild leader and tell you how good you did saving me, and he'll reward you." And he gives you this icon, and you take it back to him, and if you do that, the Shadow Knight takes the icon and tells you failed. You did what? You saved him? And he throws the icon in the pond and tells you you're an idiot, and the quest just ends. So I was looking at my quests. I'm sure you did this as well when you were a designer, that you go to Alakazam and you check out your old quests and see people's comments on your quest. And somebody had posted like, "Hey, I did this quest and I saved the guy and I turned in the icon, and the guildmaster was an idiot and threw the icon in the water. Is this quest broken or something?" And somebody commented like, "No, it's not broken. Think about it. You're a Shadow Knight, and you have this guy, an evil Shadow Knight, who failed, and the guildmaster take care of it, like do what needs to be done. So what you're supposed to do is just kill the guy." And he drops a heart, and you turn in the heart, and he's like, "Okay, good. You did the right thing. You killed the guy. He was a failure. Here's your quest armor." And what's cool is the guy who made this comment said, "Hey, just think about it think about yourself as a character here." The guy who posted that, his signature in the post was like, such and such from this server, and used to post in forums, they'd have their signature and it might have an inspirational quote or something.
Yeah.
The inspirational quote in his signature was, "When others fall to spear and sword, we must stand."
So badass.
It was so cool. Like, I felt so good about that. That's like my favorite memory in my time as a designer, was having somebody my quest dialogue.
Dude, that's such a good story. That's so meta, to be honest. The story you just told was fantastic. The story was about a quest that you wrote, right? And you kicked it off. I mean, that was a beautiful brick. Opening, ending, Jeremy. Dude, you are a great storyteller. You're a great storyteller. And honestly, man, like, go back through, watch this VOD, skip over me talking too much in different spots. I do that shit. Just fucking, you can watch it, like, when my mouth's moving, just move through that. Get back to the stuff that you said. And look at the stuff that you worked on. Look at the stories that you've written. Look at the responses in chat, because they're in there when you watch the VODs. You can see the chat on the side. Like, you write deep stuff, man. Like, you write really solid, deep, get you thinking style shit, right? And I think that's you got to do you at this point, right? Like, you've got to do whatever is working for you at the moment. But if you have some extra time to just like jot some stuff down, if you can put aside a little hobby day here and there, and like just think about what you'd like to write. Don't think about where it's going. Don't think about what it's like, Does this commercial, does this mean, do I need to work towards making a thing that people will consume? But like, just continue to stoke that fire and then see what happens. And like I said, man, we're in Discord. We're going to be around. This community's, here. You've written fantastic stuff. And it's funny, like when you go back and explain it at the beginning, when you're going through the quest and like the thinking and stuff that's in it, it's just a fun way of writing as well, man. It's not like me. Look in chat. This is how I operate. I was given a tunnel. Lawrence Poe was like, "Hey, man, I got this space over here. There's nothing in it. Maybe put an encounter or something in there. It's kind of a dead spot." This is my level of sophistication. I look at it and go, "Dude, there's nothing over here. It's like a room with a tunnel. What can I do with the tunnel? I can put a big worm in it. I wonder if I can make the worm big enough to fill the tunnel." That was my technical challenge. Can we scale this worm big enough to fill this tunnel properly? I'd probably spent a third of my time implementing that encounter just scaling the worm to fit in a tunnel the right way. That's it. And so like, I'm not sitting here like thinking deep shit and like telling beautiful stories. So yeah, man, I don't know. I'm excited that this stream has triggered us catching up, and I'm excited to hear the stories that you just told. And I'm definitely excited for us to sort of keep talking, and I'm really curious to see if that fire starts for you.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna hit up Turnip there and talk about Banner Award, because there is some stuff I do there. But this is super inspiring. It's really exciting to see everybody really excited about this. And this Project 1999. It's like people know who it is, what it is here. It seems in
Yeah,
comments.
they got it.
But there's my cat. There are people who have never played EverQuest. People who they're like teenagers playing a game that's 20 years old, and they're like super into it. They're really, that's something special. Right. To be a part of something like that.
Yeah. There are people literally playing your content for the first time right now.
Yeah.
They're going through the stories for the first time, and Kunark's coming up, right? So we're playing on Eridune. Kunark's coming up, so a lot of that's still to come. And then Velious. So we've still got a good ways ahead of us of playing through your content.
Yeah. So there's more I want to ask you about combat stuff, but we'll leave that for another time. But yeah, it sounds like a good time to maybe wrap it up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's 10:30 here. We usually go to around 11 before Jasmine starts kicking me. But she's laughing in the background. But yeah, dude. And as Trump said, please come back on the stream. You're already in Discord with us. You'll be talking to Turnip. We'll get back on the stream. And what I'm hoping to do is, as we get more people on, there's always opportunity. Todd was just on bullshitting with me yesterday while I was trying to test some stuff for another 2 hours. It was great. Come back on. I want to get some of the other people together as well. If we can somehow figure out how to get video to work for one guest, then maybe I can get it to work for 2 or 3. I've got the feeling it's going to be Zoom or something. Yeah, then we can see how many more gaps we can sort of uncover and fill. But it's been, dude, this has been so much fun.
Yeah, super fun. All right, thanks, Sean. And thanks everybody in chat. Thanks for all the encouragement. I really enjoy talking with everybody. I'm excited to go through the stream later on.
Definitely rewatch it. We'll both cringe at our voices, because that's always like, I always hate hearing myself. But dude, go through and just pick up on that vibe, and let's get creative again. Cool, man.
Good night.
Good night. Bye, Jeremy. Oh man, that last story, dude. That last story. Jasmine, you missed it. You'll have to watch the VOD. Because you could only hear my end. Mine was not the good end. Jeremy's was the good end. It was just such a great story.